Can you imagine, just for a moment, if your parents did this 30-day confidence challenge with you? Confidence grows in whispers, not in fireworks. The goal isn't to make your kids fearless, it's to help them face fear and keep moving forward. One of your greatest tools as a parent is self-awareness. Welcome back to another weekly group coaching call. Got some great questions lined up today, so let's get started. Okay, Mr. Brown, my child gets embarrassed when I try these activities with them. How do I avoid pushback? Right, first of all, expect pushback. Your child, especially if they're a senior or a teen, might start pushing back on some of these exercises. They might not feel cool to do some of these exercises, or they might feel a bit weird or awkward. That's totally fine. Expect pushback. Plan for pushback, right? Don't be shocked when you get it. That's one of the first things I would say. It's really important that you keep this very light. Don't tell them that you're training them to be more confident. Instead, just say you've got a 30-day challenge for them. You don't even have to call it a confidence challenge. You could just call it a challenge where we're going to do things together to grow and develop. It's going to be really good fun, and the whole thing should be lighthearted and done through play. If you've got a junior, this absolutely should be done in play. Otherwise, they'll get even more embarrassed. I would suggest doing the activity yourself first, so they can see it. If you suddenly say to your junior that you want them to do a superhero pose and they find that embarrassing, maybe the best way to approach that is to do the superhero pose 3 or 4 times in front of them and then say, can you copy me? They'll probably copy you without you even asking. But the whole point there is that they are mirroring you, and it's less embarrassing if they're doing it at home with you and you've shown them how to do it first. And the next thing is to celebrate quietly. So some of that awkwardness or embarrassment comes from celebrating publicly. Again, if you've got a teen, they're going to be less likely to want you to celebrate them publicly. If you have a junior, they're probably more likely to be okay with it. But again, every child's different, so you've got to read their personality. But ultimately, stay small and private to begin with. Let them copy you. Celebrate privately, and then bring it, out to friends, family, maybe even publicly, and keep it light. Make sure that it's playful, it's fun, and this isn't hardcore training. The Marines boot camp. This is good fun stuff with your child. So I hope that helps. Next question. Mrs. Taylor has asked, what if my child already seems confident? Do they still need this? Really good question. Now, here's what I would say. Confidence isn't fixed. It's try and see confidence like a muscle. So your child might be confident today, but that confidence might slip. And so you as a parent need the tools, the exercise, and the habits to actually continue that confidence journey and to bring them back on track, right? One of the things I've noticed from working with thousands of families around the world is confidence slips the most when kids go through transitions. So when a new sibling is born, or when they move home, or when they change school or change class, or when academic pressure increases. You start to see these moments of transition as the breeding ground for a confidence slip, or even for bullying. Now, if you've cemented all of these exercises, habits, routines, and you understand the language to bring a child's confidence up, they will bounce back far faster. So 100%, even if your child is confident, this is very, very useful stuff. You might see less of a jump within 30 days because they're already at a very high level of confidence, but this is fundamental training for parents and for your child. The next question here, Mr. White says, my child doesn't open up about their feelings. How can I get them to engage with the emotional check-ins? Okay, with trying to get your child to engage with emotional check-ins, it's really important you don't force it, right? If you try to force your child to open up emotionally, they'll actually just put up the barriers and shut down even more. We have found, and I have found as a dad as well, that actually using pictures or images in a very, very simple way where they can just point without speaking does wonders. That helps so much, first of all. So focus on that, first of all, and then you can start to develop that to them expressing themselves in words and then sentences until they are having proper conversations with you about their emotions. The other thing is if they don't want to do something, they don't want to open up, then they can copy you first. So maybe you sit down and you say, this is my feeling today, or this is my mood today, or this is where I am on the scale of 1 to 10, whatever it is, right? whatever exercise is specific to your child's age group. The important thing there is to mirror, for them to mirror and for you to model, right? The next thing I've got down here for you is the timing that you try to bring up these conversations about emotion is really key. So try not to ask them questions about how they're feeling when you know that they're going to be really stressed, when they're transitioning from school to home life. This is actually a classic one we often see. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it works, depending on your child. If you've got a child with ADHD, this is probably the worst time to ask them how they're feeling, right? They may be masking all day at school, and then they get in the car, and they suddenly let themselves go, and they can release all this emotional baggage from pretending to be well-behaved and controlling themselves all day. The reality is timing matters so much when you have these conversations. You want to wait until they're kind of a little bit calm to have an in-depth conversation about emotions. If it's just a case of trying to get them to share what emotion they're feeling in the moment, it matters less. But if you're trying to ask specific questions about how they're feeling and sharing their feelings and emotions, timing is really crucial. Okay, I hope that helps. Next question. Mrs. Chen, sometimes my child just shuts down or refuses completely. Should I push harder or should I back off? So, if your child shuts down during one of the exercises, it's probably quite important that you don't push in the moment, right? Step back a little bit, read the room a bit, right? Because it could be that they're in a place where this is the worst timing to do a superhero pose, or this is the worst timing for them to do something complex or do something courageous. And again, it goes back to timing when we're asking emotional questions. What you want to do is remove layers of resistance. So if you try and push them too hard when they really don't want to do something, you might build up that resistance. So timing becomes really key. You can step back and then you can reintroduce things later, right? And when you do reintroduce it, try and do a watered down version, a softer version, because it could have been that particular exercise they weren't happy with. One of the things I always say is it's momentum, it's being directionally correct. It's doing small exercises every day rather than doing one exercise which takes half an hour, the next day doing nothing. So even if you just do a very small exercise, that's a really good way of doing it. The other thing is you can offer them a choice, right? So instead of saying, this is exactly what we're going to do, you can say, you can do like this or you can do like this. Which one would you prefer? When they have the ability to have an opinion over something, they have more ownership and you'll find that they're more on board. Finally, on this point, I would say, even if they engage just a bit, celebrate that moment. Remember, we're not celebrating the completion of an exercise, more so we are celebrating the effort. We're recognizing the effort or the courage it took, because we're trying to build a repeatable process where they actually want to attempt things. It's not about success or failure. Okay, Mr. Wilson has asked, how would I know if this is actually working? Very, very simply, you will know by using the scorecards. So we have 3 scorecards built into the 30-day confidence challenge at the beginning, at the end, and in the middle. If you fill in those scorecards, you will get clues, or even you'll get a percentage shift into how your child's confidence is changing and growing and developing. Also, look for small shifts. So one of the great ways you can do this, I often find that non-verbal communication makes up about 90% of your child's confidence. So if you were to just watch your child each week, watch how they play in the park, or watch how they show up in school, or watch how they talk to their friends, or watch how they are at home, you might start seeing small shifts in their eye contact, in their posture, their willingness to try new things, their expression. All these little things are signs or signals that their confidence is shifting. And it's actually quite exciting once you do spot that. The next thing I would say is trust the process, right? Because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It takes minimum of 30 days. It's a bold statement for us to say that we can guarantee an increase in your child's confidence in 30 days, but we do believe that because we've seen that so much. We haven't just made this stuff up. We've been doing it for the last 15 years with the 50,000 parents around the world using the methods in these books. This stuff works. So trust the process, but understand that it does take time. You might see jumps. So you might, stay stationary for a while and then suddenly have a big jump in your child's confidence. Don't expect it to be like this all the time. Developing your child's character, improving their confidence isn't linear. Sometimes it's up and down like a sound wave, but you're directionally correct, right? Finally, you can just ask your child. You can just ask your child what feels easier now than a month ago. Maybe they're doing a challenge or an exercise that they did a month, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. You can ask them to do the same one and say, does that feel easier? Does it feel different? And see if you can pick up on those changes. So, Mr. Wilson, I hope that helps. We have a couple more questions here. So, Mrs. Roberts, my child compares themselves to a sibling who's more outgoing. How do I balance that? Sibling comparison is very, very typical. It can be quite damaging. And actually, as they get older, if you really focus on this, it can become more competitive. They can become more competitive and actually start having resentment. One of the big issues with sibling rivalry is that parents always encourage the siblings to compete with each other. So if you imagine it was, I bet you can't do this before your other child does this, or who's the fastest out of you two, who's the fastest to achieve this, or who's the strongest, or who can climb to the top of that, or all these sorts of things. They basically cement this sibling rivalry, which makes them more competitive, which can be healthy. But on the flip side of that, a better way of maybe approaching it is having the siblings or the kids compete with you. So saying, I bet you can't beat me to the top of the tree or to the end of the road in a race or something, or I bet you can't tidy the room as quickly as me. These little competitive things are absolutely fine when it's with you, I feel, because at the end of the day, they're not going to necessarily resent you for competing with you in a fun way, but their siblings will take competing very seriously, and that resentment can carry on into adult life. So just a note there on resentment from sibling rivalry. But to answer your question, how do you balance that when you've got one sibling that's more outgoing? Try to focus on individuality. There's a great exercise where you help a child realize their strengths and their weaknesses. One of the things that we do at the Warrior Academy is we get two kids to sit together. And they have to be kind of preteen to do this. We ask them both to come up with 3 things that the other child does really well or is really strong at, right? And then at the end of 5 minutes, they read it out. And it's quite a magical moment because the answers are sometimes very different. James is really kind, or he helps me with my homework, or I notice that he always looks after other kids, so his strength is kindness. Sally is really strong. I notice that she can climb the monkey bars or do press-ups, so her strength is being strong, right? These little things that kids can then share about each other, which really add up. So it's focusing on individuality and celebrating that. Try to avoid labels. So language becomes really, really key here, right? Don't label your child the shy one and the confident one. This might sound obvious, but we have so many parents who have brought their kids to us saying, my child is badly behaved, or my child is shy. Can you fix them? If you want to change something about your child to improve their character, you need to change the language you use to describe them first, right? So remove negative language. Make sure all the language you use for your child is aspirational. Whenever you talk about your child, in front of them, to them, around them, you are painting a picture of what they'll grow into. And it can be one of the most heartbreaking things if parents don't do this properly. So avoid labels as much as you can, unless they're aspirational. Creating moments. So I've written down here creating moments, and what I mean by that is creating moments where each child can shine in their own way. So back to the example of kindness and strength, right? Celebrating those moments, create those moments, give them an opportunity to show their strength, and then double down on praising them for that strength. Not because they achieved something, but because of the effort, right? The same thing for your other child, maybe it's strength or kindness, whatever it is. So it's almost creating these moments where you can double down on praising them for having that strength. And differences need to be celebrated, right? So one of the beautiful things about life is that we're all very different. The sooner your child learns and appreciates that, the happier, more content, and more peaceful they're going to be. Next question from Mr. James. I struggle with confidence myself. Can I still teach it to my child? One of your greatest tools as a parent is self-awareness. Parenting is almost like getting a ticket to the greatest self-development course on the planet. You are going to be asking yourself lots of introspective questions. If you're a good parent, which you are because you're on this challenge, you are going to be developing and growing at a very fast rate as a parent when you go through raising a human being, right? Sometimes you'll spot yourself having to deal with triggers you never thought you had, and you'll ask yourself questions like, why does that annoy me? Why does that upset me? Why does that frustrate me? And you'll learn a lot about yourself. Confidence is a huge part of that, right? So if you're a parent and you don't feel you've got confidence, sometimes going through this process of developing it in your child can actually be almost a deep, cathartic way of healing your inner child and understanding that maybe you didn't have the tools you needed to grow in confidence at that age, but now you are able to give that to your child. It can be almost a very magical shared moment between you and your kids. I would actually say you're in the perfect place to do that. A supportive group of parents with a proper structure and process to develop your confidence and your child's confidence, and maybe even have a look at this challenge and think, well, how can I relate that to my own life? Join in with all the exercises with your child. Make an adult version of this. Take everything I give you and then say, right, let me just check that to the teens and see if I can create a slightly more adult version of that. And then start to build up your own framework for developing your own confidence, your own routines, your own exercises. Ultimately, you're showing your child what growth looks like. And I think that's something you should be really proud of. You're teaching them that courage is something which we are focusing on, right? Confidence is the end goal, but courage, if you go back to the beginning of the confidence challenge, which you've all done here, courage is the main focus. Everything is downstream from courage. If you want to have confidence yourself or with your child, you have to focus on courage, the exercise that you put into courage. The muscle of courage needs developing all the time. And I think that by showing your child you're still learning, you're actually helping them learn a lot themselves about life. So, Mr. James, I think that's a really, introspective question there, a very vulnerable question, and I think that a lot of parents will have appreciated you asking that one. Okay, next question is from Adam. How do I keep my child motivated when they stop seeing results? So, if your child stops seeing results, then that shows me they are focused on the outcome and they are results driven, and that you need to bring them back to focus on the effort, right? The whole goal is to focus on the effort. If we focus on the effort, results will come later. And that can be easier said than done, but that is the reality. Try to reflect on where they started, show them the growth, show them the little things that you've noticed change in them, even if the only benefit or compliment you can come up with is that they've been consistent, right? That itself is growth. Consistency is one of the most important things, right? And that it's inevitable their confidence will grow if they're consistent. You can also add variety. So if they are lacking motivation, try to add more variety to the challenge. Different exercises, going back to what worked before, doing it in different locations. Maybe the timing of the day you're choosing the exercises is the wrong time. It's when they feel less motivated, maybe when they're tired or they're stressed. So timing can be key here as well. And then just reminding them that confidence builds very slowly, right? And depending on your child, you're probably not even having a conversation with them to say, I'm doing this to build your confidence. You're just positioning this as a really fun challenge to do together. So if you are doing that, if you are talking to them about this being about developing their confidence, then just be real with them. Share with them a time or a vulnerable time where you didn't have confidence and you did something similar and it grew your confidence. Paint a picture for what having more confidence will actually look like in their life. That's key. We need a little moonshot for our kids to grow into, right? This is what we're aiming for. This is what it looks like. Not being as scared of trying new things. Being brave. All these aspirational words or targets that we want our kids to grow into. All right. We are going to wrap today up because what we have covered today, I think really gets to the heart of what this whole challenge is about for parents and for kids. Every single question that was included on my laptop today, for me, just shows how much you care. how deeply you're showing up for your kids. Even when it's messy and uncertain, I don't think parenting is a tidy, neat thing. I think it can be chaotic, messy and uncertain. I think that you have to be directionally correct to achieve the growth and potential that you want in your kids and develop their character. But really for me, it's the foundation of confidence, right? It's that consistent love. It's consistently showing up. It's having those small actions that we put ourselves out there every single day. I think a lot of parents worry about getting it wrong. They worry about saying the wrong thing. They worry about missing a day. They worry about not having the energy or facing resistance in their exercise with their kids. But here's the truth. I think that confidence, building confidence, it's not built in perfect conditions. Just like I say to our martial artists, you never fight when you're 100%. So many times I've gone into a match and I haven't felt 100%. I have felt injured or tired or sluggish, but you compete or you fight anyway, right? Now, bringing this straight back to an example to the reality of raising kids with confidence, the point here is that confidence isn't built in perfect moments, in perfect conditions. It's built in imperfect, real-life moments where you keep trying as a parent, as a child anyway, where you show up after a really long day and where you turn a small moment into connection. That is the gold we're looking for, right? That is the consistency that you want as a parent. I think that some of you mentioned kids shutting down, rolling their eyes, or getting embarrassed. All of that's very normal. Remember, they're testing safety. So is this safe for me to try? And often that is the pushback you get, right? The awkwardness or the this isn't cool or I'm embarrassed. It comes from them feeling safe or not safe. So you need to be consistent. I think the bottom line here is the more calm and consistent you stay, the safer this is going to feel. So your steady energy is what's going to tell them, your calm presence is what's going to tell them, you don't have to get it right, you just have to show up. And they're going to learn a lot by the way you handle this challenge. For those of you working your own confidence, that was a really fantastic question. Very vulnerable, deep, introspective question. You don't need to be fully confident yourself to raise confident kids. That might sound strange. But ultimately, your vulnerability and your shared growth is what's going to help them along as well. You do need to be real with them. So if your child sees that you're trying, they see you learning, they see you stumbling and still showing up, you're giving them permission to be human too. And remember, it's overcoming failure, little minor failures in life or setbacks, which actually build the confidence in the first place. And they're building all of this from self-belief. They're not building it from lectures. They are building this from watching how you live. Another thing we talked about today was feeling like things aren't changing. Zoom in. Confidence grows in whispers, not in fireworks. It's in the slightly stronger voice, the quick recovery after a setback, and that tiny moment where they have a setback, but then they quickly try again, right? You might not notice day to day those shifts, those micro moments, but they all add up. And after a 30-day period, you're going to start seeing some big changes. Remember this, every single child's path looks different. Some build confidence through laughter and play, and others through quiet persistence. Don't compare journeys between siblings or other kids or other parents in your own home. The goal isn't to make your kids fearless, it's to help them face fear and keep moving forward. So, as you head into the next stage, the next phase of the challenge, give yourself some credit. You're doing something powerful, you're breaking old patterns, and you're creating a space where confidence can grow naturally. So make sure you keep it playful, keep it light, and keep it real. The truth here is that when you show up with warmth, curiosity, and patience as a parent guiding your child along this 30-day journey, you're going to be teaching your child that confidence, and the confidence you're teaching them, all comes from believing themselves no matter what life throws at them. So that's the heart of all of this work. It starts and it ends with you as parents. Keep your head up if you're struggling, you're doing an amazing job. And the amount of parents who don't invest in their own education to help their kids is baffling. The fact that you are here says so much about your character and how much you care. So keep showing up, keep trusting the process. All the little things that you're doing right now are what is going to add up and leave a lifelong mark in your child. Can you imagine, just for a moment, if your parents did this 30-day confidence challenge with you? Can you just imagine how you might have changed as a result of that? And imagine how appreciative you would have been to them for investing in their own education and encouraging you to go through this process. I think that if you reflect on that, that will give you a huge boost in motivation and make you realize just how well you're doing. So keep it up.